These stories, we're going to start with Nigeria, and then we would sort of like shift base. Of course, we know that there's a lot happening in the world right now. One story being really, really, really huge, seeing as it has such global impact. So we will be talking Iran in a little bit. But first of all, let us look at what's happening here in our dear country, Nigeria. I saw two reports that had me thinking. How are we shaping up in terms of our policy? Like, what are we doing, and are we taking practical steps towards ensuring that we are in a better place as a country going forward? I spoke about Iran just a couple of seconds ago, and you have NNPC coming out to say that given what is going on in the world, Nigeria is shaping up to fill in the gaps in terms of global supply of oil. You had the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC, Bayo Ojulari, saying that Nigeria will increase its crude oil production by about 100,000 barrels per day over the next few months. And the first question that I asked was, how? Is this wishful thinking? And I say that because just a few days before he made this statement, or a day before he made this statement, as a matter of fact, a report came out talking about how, as a country, we have missed our crude oil output target by 16.6 million barrels as far as this year's report. So January and February, what the target was set at, if we were working with the projections made in the budget, we should have been doing 1.84 million barrels per day, bringing us to about 108.6 million barrels in the first 2 months. But we had a combined total of 92 million barrels per day, bringing a shortfall of 16.6 million. So I'm like trying to reconcile these two reports to say this is where we're currently at. And it's been, I think, a very long time since we're able to even match up with what was presented as our estimate for barrels per day production in the budget. So it does seem like a lot of wishful thinking, or was it just me? So, I mean, I'm glad that you're here today, sir, so that we can break this down and make sense of it. We have a budget predicated on 1.84 million barrels per day. We have missed that in just 60 days by 16 million barrels. Chances are that we may continue to not meet up with that, because in the first case, it's like that projection was very, very, ambitious. But at the same time, you are having Bayo Ojulari saying that they're looking to increase output. I mean, I would have thought that we'll start by meeting up with the shortfall first, but they say they're looking to increase output. And in his defense, part of the reason why he talked about us having this shortfall, he had attributed it to maintenance at the Bonga field. Apparently, there is a scheduled maintenance that is going on there, and that is what has affected us. But apart from that, data also shows that there has been drop in output at Kwaibo and Forcados. And this is not just attributed to theft, which is the typical reason that is given, but, you know, there have been conversations going on around failing infrastructure, aging infrastructure, and all of that. So I'm thinking, with all of these factors going on, why do we just go, and it was on a global stage this pronouncement was made, why do we just go and make such statements? Do we actually have plans to back up the statements that we make? Because I know that across the world, they're looking for people that can fill in for supply of oil, right? And it is such a key conversation to be having right now. But it's just more ambitious projections. Do we have anything to show for it? So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this, sir? Are we structurally designed to miss out on what will be a possible windfall for us, given the global happenings?
The question you've asked is a multi-barrier question, not double-barriered. And I'd like to start with the last one you just talked about.
Yep.
You use the word structural.
Yes.
In a way, and that has always been my fear, the way the oil and gas industry in Nigeria is actually structured. Sometimes, this windfall that should ordinarily be our lot now, the misfortune, quote and unquote, of what's happening in the Middle East, may not always be a reality. Because the bulk of our oil is actually in private hands. And so, When we hear that Nigeria is producing 1.5, 1.6 million barrels per day, all of it does not belong to the Nigerian state. It's a JV. So the multinationals and some local players will take their own share of the oil and give us our own. So sometimes we may not always maximize the advantages. Like some other countries like the Saudis, the Qataris, even the Iranians themselves. For example, Iran is about to sell oil to the United States because Trump is considering waiving sanctions on Iranian oil temporarily to ease supply pressures. So even Iran is going to benefit much more than all because they are structured around the state. These countries have been able to make sure that the state controls the bulk of the oil production such that the revenues come directly to the state, so citizens benefit. In the case of Nigeria, it is not so. The PIA has internationalized our domestic oil and gas market while also dollarizing it. So, for example, Dangote actually buys crude in dollars and sells his product to marketers in dollars as well. So, he also has to buy crude oil from Nigerian suppliers at the rate that is quoted in New York, international market rate. No concession. So the only time he gets concession is when he cries out, then the NNPC will bend backwards a bit. But even that bending backwards is not actually capturing the PIA. It's supposed to be free market enterprise all through. And oil and gas industry markets in the world that is serious. Particularly for oil producing countries that should deregulate or make it such a free market enterprise. So there must be regulation for the advantage of the state and the citizens of the state. So I'm not optimistic that I'm going to make so much from this. Really, I'm not optimistic. That's on one hand. But as to what Ojidari said, concerning output in production, I'm aware that right now the NUPRC is actually putting final touches to the bidding round for 2026 for new oil fields, marginal fields, and a lot of companies, both local and international, have indicated interest to actually participate, and they're participating already. So a number of companies have been pre-qualified. And I want to believe that once the bidding round ends and the successful bidders are allocated their blocks and they begin to invest in de-risking these blocks and converting them to from OPLs to OMLs, I want to believe that could increase oil production because these are additional, these are new fields, these are new openings across the country, including somewhere as far flung as Kogi, for instance. The opening bids for the oil and gas assets in Kogi. So I want to believe that if the bidders are successful and they begin to invest, that might actually increase output and contribute to the daily output of oil production in Nigeria, marginally. And it might actually hit that target. He actually mentioned about 100,000 per day.
Yeah.
Also, you may be aware that they've resolved the OPL 245 saga finally.
Yes, they have.
And E&I and its partners are returning to site. It has been converted to OML as we speak, and they're about also bringing in about $20 billion in investment to de-risk and begin production in that very, very lucrative oil field. If that is done within the shortest possible time as well, it's expected that that field alone can actually produce 150,000 barrels per day.
But wouldn't it be subject to the same things that have led to the, if you will, leakages that is not even allow us to meet with the target that has been set in terms of production as far as our 2026 budget is concerned? All these oil fields, what will be the point of them all if at the end of the day they will still be subjected? And I've heard that OPL is not as vulnerable to theft, but what about all the other ones? Aren't we going to still come back and have the same problem?
Issues of oil theft,
yes,
for instance.
Oil theft and every other thing that has contributed to the reason why we're not meeting up in the first place.
Fundamental reason why we're not meeting up, fundamental reason was low investment inflow into the upstream sector or subsector of the oil and gas industry. For 12 years, actually, we didn't have major investments in the upstream until the Tinubu administration came in. And so the PIA, the world was waiting for us to have a firm law around our oil and gas operations so that a law that is bankable, something they can rely on and plan. Even though, again, we started using the executive orders now to sidestep some sections of the PIA,
yes,
which again may not really encourage investment. But the good thing is, once we started implementing the PIA, we saw some inflows of investment. And again, because the president is a businessman. He's a business-related person. And he has a minister of petroleum who's also hands-on. So when they bring some of these propositions to him to say, look, Mr. President, we need to clear some hurdles on the way for investment to come in, the president is very quick to use his pen to issue instruments.
An order, for example.
Orders. Where you need to amend the PIA, he does it. So on that score, he's been quite successful in attracting investments back to Nigeria. You might just also know that Nigeria is going to host what is called the Energy Bank in Abuja here. It's a multilateral agency that is going to mobilize financing, principally from the Afrexim Bank, to support oil and gas operations in Nigeria and some other African countries. So they are putting all these structures together. And so far, it's yielding marginal benefits. So what has been the major obstacle against us meeting our production was investment. We've met that now, or we are meeting that now. Now, in terms of oil theft, which was also another contributory factor, that is, the little you're able to produce is even stolen. Before it gets to the terminal, somebody has put pipe somewhere and bring it off. I can assure you too that matching order that the president gave one time to the chief of defense staff, who's now the minister of defense, to say, look, I want oil theft to stop. I think, to some extent, we're able to bring it under control. The western corridor of the Trans-Niger pipeline infrastructure, the one that's been handled by Tantita, Mr.
Tompolo, yes.
No matter what you want to say about Tompolo and his partners, one thing they've done is they've done a very fantastic job in cleaning up that area of responsibility that they were given. They've largely cleaned up. Where they're having challenges now is the eastern flank and part of the central network of those pipeline infrastructure. So oil theft has been brought relatively, down. Before it was so massive. More than 400,000 barrels were stolen daily. Melu said you pump 20,000 barrels and only 5,000 gets to the terminal. I think they've been able to bring all of that under control too, and they're improving. So with that, and with the investment climate getting improved, I want to believe that they can meet up with that target. But the problem here is this. The way our oil and gas industry is configured, even if you have 10 million barrels per day production, you will not maximize the benefit as much as countries where I keep making this argument about the state and the private sector.
Yes.
You see, oil producing countries, mostly from the Middle East and parts of Africa, have been able to put in place infrastructure, structures, and processes that make sure that the state, the owners of the oil, benefit much more than any other entity in the oil production. That is not the case with Nigeria. So for me, we may need to take a second look at the PIA. For me, we need to clean up government. We need government to become very serious. We need government to become very, very responsible, so they can take up that key responsibility of actually running enterprises. You see, some of the largest oil companies in the world today that are very successful are actually state-owned oil and gas industry. Talk about Saudi Aramco, talk about Sino Oil of China, talk about Petrobras of Brazil, Petronas of Malaysia, etc., Qatar Energy. These are world-class oil companies that are state-owned. So what it means is that because of these performing companies that are among Fortune 50 companies, these countries have been able to maximize the benefit of oil and gas production. That is why, for instance, the vexatious issue of subsidy that Nigeria cannot pay, these countries are paying it with so much ease that the current crisis in the Middle East is not affecting their citizens. They have been shielded completely because they have enough money, they have enough buffer to make sure that their citizens are shielded from the ravages of the spiking prices in energy. But Nigeria cannot do that because when you do JVs, the money is shared between you, the state, Nigerian government, and the contractor, the multinational oil company. And they will deduct cost of production, deduct all sorts of costs first, before they show what is left.
Okay, which will bring me to my next question, which is on the matter of even, say we're able to meet up with the production levels. I mean, the target is 1.8 million barrels per day, and we are what now? I think underperforming by about 25 to 30% in terms of meeting up with that cost. So even if we're to increase by this 100 or let's even get ambitious and say with the OPL, we now have 250,000 barrels per day. Are we going to meet that 1.8 mark? And also considering the fact that we have a deficit that is in trillions, putting all of that together, is that going to get us where we need to go? That's the question, but let's take a quick break and we'll come back and answer it.
We make am for Eminent Limited. Our ceiling they last and it defines scatter. Our calci seal or calci craft.
Hi everyone.
Religious buildings are calci seal and calci craft ceiling products wey dey for plain and pattern. They last well. If they block heat plus noise from to the entire house. Our products no dey catch fire cha or you carry your phone ring a number for Eminent on 0700-3839-644 or waka enter any of our distributor shop wey dey close to you or download the Eminent app on Google Play Store or iOS. Our office call the number 7 Old Abakaliki Road, Enugu. Eminent Limited, we tender for anywhere people they build. We be EDEX company.
It's the Midweek special. My name remains Somi, and Dr. Majeed Dahiru, researcher, columnist, and tech team lead at Luxterra, is here with us this afternoon. And we've started getting into some of the stories in the headlines. Just before the break, we were talking about the conversation on what we're doing in terms of production of crude, especially as it has to do with what's happening in the world, how it can affect perhaps the purse of the Nigerian government. I don't know if it might be too idealistic to say perhaps it will also get to the purse of the Nigerian, the average Nigerian. But, let's just even say that if we're addressing it from the standpoint of them being able to increase production, get to, say, 1.8 million barrels per day, the next question then becomes, how are we going to, they're not going to get to 1.8. It's fairly ambitious. So say we're even able to increase it. We averaged 1.3 million barrels per day in February. We're in March. So expecting 1.8 might be such a stretch. So even though there is a marginal increase, say by an additional 250 million barrels per day, 250,000
barrels.
1,000 barrels, sorry, forgive me, yes, 1,000. Okay, see, I was even being overly hopeful. So say we're able to do that, we still have tens of trillions of naira in debt. How are we going to be able to balance this out? Yes.
Okay, I've made this point over and over and over again. Any country whose economy is structured like Nigeria will be indebted and will not be able to pay the debt. Guess what? And that includes the United States of America. We copied the American model hurriedly without understanding the fact that America owns the dollar. It can print it at any time it wishes. It will call it quantitative easing. It will call it debt. Yes? And so it owes itself. So what you call ways are being said, America actually does it all the time. But they own the dollar. But for any other country in the world, you have to earn the dollar. And the dollar is the international currency of trade, commerce, industry, and investment. So you must earn it as a nation. You must earn the dollar. You can't print the dollar. So countries that know that they have to earn the dollar, and most importantly, pound sterling too, now got their government involved in the means of production. So for instance, Dangote owns a refinery. He sells his product abroad. He exports his product. He earns dollars. That dollar belongs to Dangote. It doesn't belong to you, the Nigerian state. Dangote will pay you tax in naira. If there are charges in dollars that Dangote used to pay, he pays it to you. But the dollars he earns from exporting his petroleum products is Dangote's money. Even if it is in the Nigerian banks, for instance, in his domiciliary account, the government of Nigeria cannot go there and take the money and do. We can't. It's his money. But when the government, for instance, if NNPC is able to become well repositioned and also export products, like when the Port Harcourt refinery started initially, before it was shut down again, NNPC exported one or two products to the UAE, I think, or another country. That brings in dollars directly into the coffers of the federal government or the federation. So now, the only source of dollars for Nigeria only are two major sources. Our investment in the LNG in Bonny, but they export gas from Bonny. So every year, the Nigerian government is paid dividends in dollars because it's an export thriving enterprise. Now, NNPC manages, on behalf of the Nigerian state and the people, our crude assets. So what we get from JVs also coming through the NNPC to a federation account, crude oil sales.
Yes.
There are some Nigeria levy at the ports that sometimes come in dollars. I don't know that that's still the case anyway. But these are just very minor source of revenue. But the major source of foreign exchange, dollars, for the Nigerian state, for the Federation of Nigeria, is export of crude oil and export of gas. That's because Nigeria even created an entity called NNPC that is now managing the government stake in most of these multinational oil companies and their assets. And because we also made investment in the LNG, Nigeria owns 49% of LNG, of the Bonny Liquefied Natural Gas Limited. This has been the saving grace. Now, for a country of 200 million people, straddling over 920,000 plus square kilometer of landmass, this source of revenue is not it cannot be enough. Let us even leave corruption aside. Let's leave corruption aside. Let's deal with the gross revenue first. What comes in? It cannot be enough. So what do we need to do? We need to increase government presence in export competitive sphere of the economy. And when I say government, I mean both the federal and the state government, particularly the state government. Particularly. For instance, nothing stops Benue State from making investments in agriculture enough to now be a major exporter of organic food produce to the European Union that meets all the standards. So for instance, if anybody wants oranges, mangoes, vegetables that are organic, that do not need fertilizers and all that to cultivate, Benue State, Plateau State, Taraba, Cross River, should be to form that triangle where this supply to the European Union can be met by the state government. For you to achieve this, you must invest heavily in agricultural, something that the private sector cannot do for you. Because if I have money to invest, for example, I'm an entrepreneur and I have $2 billion to invest, I won't be going to the forest or Benue or Plateau anywhere to go and invest and get caught by one bandit or the other and start paying rent. So I won't do that. I'll look for a very easy enterprise that will bring back my money. I can put it in bonds, I can put it in securities, I can put it in shares, I can fix it. But because the state government of Benue, according to the Constitution of Nigeria, the Constitution, has got a responsibility to manage the resources of the state on behalf of the people. It's in the Constitution. You see, those who wrote the Constitution, we are wise to know that the state must manage, must harness resources and other potential economic potentialities on behalf of the people. Because you know why? We are developing the economy. So, for instance, if the 30 states of the Federation and FCT 37 have one or two export competitive items that they embark on in partnership with the federal government, and the federal government will also expand its own frontiers in export competitive enterprises too, and we now have inflow of revenue outside of crude oil and gas. It will expand the revenue pool of Nigeria. So the monthly fact we are seeing today, for instance, we'll have more money to distribute because of the multiple streams of income for the Nigerian state. I like to use the example of China all the time. Majority of the entities you see in Nigeria operating in Nigeria that are Chinese companies are owned by the Chinese government. I can't make this point enough. From the construction companies to the confectionaries to their hospitality businesses, name it. If you see a Chinese man frying akara at the junction, there is a 50% chance that akara business is being funded by the Chinese government or owned by the Chinese government. Now, I looked at the trade balance between Nigeria and China for the year 2018, for instance. I remember I did the research some time ago. And I discovered that, of course, it was about $40 billion to about $800 million. 40 China into Nigeria, 800 million into China. Mostly base oil, raw materials essentially. The China gives us loan of 500 billion from that to do railway, 5 billion. And it's one that the money that they're giving back to you as loan was made from your country. Simple. They made it from inside the same country. They didn't have to take it from another place. Because a trade deficit of over $40 billion is enough to give $100 million to loan now, to go and do railway here and there, to deploy your airports, to fix one or two things. They made it from inside your country, from your own people. So instead you patronize any Chinese company, you are paying into their own federation account. Quote and unquote. That's why today, China has got $3.3 trillion in its foreign reserve, while America that owns the dollar is trying to meet up with $1 trillion because America is not as ever competitive as China. But if America has problem today now like this, there's an outbreak of COVID or anything, all the president needs to do is to just snap his finger and they will bring out the monies and support everybody because they own the money, they own it. It's an advantage that they have. So you can't copy their money because you don't own that currency. And this is not only about China, it's the same thing with Singapore. It's the same thing with France, Germany. The German government has substantive shares, for instance, in DHL. As a government, one of the largest printing press in the entire world is owned by the German government. The GDP of France is dominated by state-owned enterprises. The French government owns the EDF. It's a power company. It's owned by the French government. It provides power at home and abroad. It's one of the major suppliers of electricity in UK and some other parts of Europe. It has the largest network of transmission lines in the world, 80,000 kilometers of transmission lines. It's owned by the French government.
I wonder perhaps...
So these revenues that comes, this is why they're able to create buffer, create welfare, create price security for their citizens. Nigeria embarked on entrepreneurial capitalism without thinking twice. I agree that state-owned enterprises were mismanaged from the 80s to the 90s. It was mismanagement. It was corruption. Mismanagement also in the private sector. I just, before coming here, I went for a late breakfast at one of those old hotels in Abuja that used to be owned by the government that was privatized. And I thought to myself, half of this building is completely rotten as we speak. It has been privatized. It has changed hands like two times or three times now. Private sector. I also thought of the other one that is somewhere around where we are now. It has been privatized for a long time and it has lost its glow. The only one that is standing pre and post-privatization is Transcorp Hilton. Meaning, businesses can be mismanaged by both government and
the private sector.
What is important is mismanagement and corruption. Private sector people can be corrupt and mismanage enterprises. Government can do the same. So what do you need to do? Fix the problem in government. Norway is one of the richest countries in the world. Norway. Sweden. Norway. Luxembourg. That's one of the richest countries in the world. Norway citizens have higher welfare ratio, or should I say, how do you call it now? In terms of Human Development Index, on all indices, the Norwegians are actually higher than the Americans. Norway is a state capitalist country. Their businesses that are owned by government are run by parastatals of government efficiently. But guess what? The king of Norway does not have a private jet. When he's traveling in charter plane or flies commercial. So there's a responsible leadership in that country. What am I saying in that sense? I've given examples. Down to South Africa here. Down to Morocco. Morocco has one of the best port systems in the world. The port system in Morocco is owned by what? The state of Morocco. Remember when Peter went to Egypt and studied electricity in Egypt and said he wanted to go and see how they are doing it, how they're getting it right. According to him, Egypt has got 100% penetration of electricity, stable, constant, and affordable. But one thing he didn't actually tell us was that the electricity company of Egypt is owned by the government of Egypt. Yes. Israel is firing missiles into Iran, and Iran is still having full electricity 24 hours of every day. Why? It is controlled by the government effectively and efficiently. Iran is firing missiles into Israel, into Tel Aviv every day, but as you are seeing smoke from one building, you are still seeing electricity in the skylines of Tel Aviv. The company that provides electricity in Israel is owned by the Israeli government. These things are called utility. You see, I attended the program once at the Savannah Center when South Korea was trying to host Africa as usual to a summit. You know, it started with China first. I thought I thought that was ridiculous enough. The thing I saw was that Japan has also invited Africa. Russia followed suit. India, Turkey, and now South Korea. Maybe the next country that will invite all of us will be North Korea. I don't know. And instead they invite us to all run to that place as if we're going to grab candies there. So we are trying to invite Africans, as usual, to a South Korea Africa summit. So my first we invited to come and discuss about the agenda, you know, that need to be put forward as a country. In that conversation, a former Nigerian ambassador to South Korea said the problem of electricity in Nigeria is something that he cannot understand because while he was in South Korea for 5 years as an ambassador, that the company that provides electricity and water was state-owned, and they call it utility. Now, what is the rigmarole are we doing in Nigeria that we can't fix things as a public utility? It was only that a major player in this country, I don't want to mention the name now, one of the operators of the power plants in this country, one of the major companies operating power plants in this country, now said that the company that they hired, after power plants were privatized to them by the Nigerian government, the company that they hired as technical partners to help them operate these companies on the technical side are South Korean state-owned companies. South Korean state-owned companies. Until we change direction, until we change course, there is no way on earth we'll be out of this debt burden. It's not possible.
Okay. 2 questions, sir, very quickly, and then move on to the next story. Just to be clear, what you're advocating for is a state capitalist type system.
Simple. But the state itself now,
yes.
before we get to that level,
yes,
the state must, I keep using one expression, the operator of the state must commit class suicide. And they don't have an option.
So it is conditional on,
of course, now
on this happening.
You must take a decision that you're going to prioritize public good, national interest, over and above ethnic, religious, partisan, and sectional self-interest.
Okay, because my follow-up question to that was going to be, haven't there been instances where state capitalism as practiced in some other parts of the world has failed?
No. In Nigeria, it failed. Guess what? International capitalism in Nigeria has failed too. Okay. The privatized power in this country,
okay,
we are crying for NEPA, that was under government, is better than what we have it now.
All right, sir.
The privatized Nigeria Airways,
yes,
it has separated from the skies. They privatized, what do you call it? Daily Times. We hardly see them on the stand anymore. So, look, as long as government is corrupt, it will have a way of affecting the private sector because they're the ones that will bring regulations, they're the ones that will hand it over to you now. So even the process of privatization will be flawed. So we need to go back to the basics. A government is like God on earth. God is perfect. God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. God is selfless. God is love. God is care. So that's how government is supposed to be. Yesterday, I watched Majeed handing over, the former prime minister of Denmark, handing over to his successor, and he rode out of the prime minister's residence with his bicycle. This is how government is supposed to be. So we must have a focus on, we must fix government. You cannot have the kind of government you have in Nigeria and expect anything to happen. How can it happen? How?
All right, sir. Let's move on to the next story. And by the way, the phone lines are open. You can start calling in or sending in your contributions to the conversation. It's 0809-597-4869. On WhatsApp, 0809-993-0137. While we wait for your calls to come in, a quick look at the second story, and then after the break, or the news at the top of the hour, we'll take the third one. The ICPC and other related offences commission yesterday arraigned former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai for alleged severance pay corruption and years-long fraudulent dollar-denominated cash deposits in his account. He was arraigned at the Federal High Court in Kaduna on 10 charges, accusing him of violating Nigeria's anti-money laundering law. His co-defendant, Joel Adoga, and himself pleaded not guilty to the charges, but following their pleas of not guilty, the trial judge Ridwan Aikawa ordered their remand in the custody of ICPC, where Malam El-Rufai had been held for over a month. Now, the charges involve alleged inflation of 579.97, just to be clear, million naira severance pay and years-long fraudulent deposits totaling $817,900 that El-Rufai allegedly received. Now, we've been having this back and forth pretty much going on between Malam Nasir El-Rufai and this current government. And you cannot help but go back to his antecedents in a way and ask some questions. Now, El-Rufai has built a reputation on due process and sanitizing the civil service. So hearing these amounts, of course, if proven that he did bypass due process for his own severance pay, I'm just wondering about his legacy and how it's going to dismantle that entire legacy that he built as a reformer. But more importantly, sir, and this is something that we cannot but ask questions about. Yes. It seems like there had to be a change in the political weather. Now, these transactions mentioned were in 2020 and 2023. This is 2026, even though attention started, coming towards him. I think it was the State House of Assembly that first of all raised an issue of mismanagement of funds. Over all of that, if I'm not mistaken, started last year. So you had that, and then now this is where we are. What does this say about the independence of the anti-graft agencies if they only take on these kinds of cases and drive this hard when politicians fall out of favor? Because what we are clearly seeing is a falling out of favor, except you feel differently.
Let me say this.
Yes, please, do say.
Because this is the fire we're talking about.
Yes.
You see, for many years, I've always posited that when you're in government, please lay a good legacy in place in terms of rule of law, accountability, effectiveness in governance, all that is good about governance. Make sure you contribute to quota in advancing them. You know why? So that when you leave power, you now come back and be a beneficiary of the things you put in place while you're in government. So for instance, if you are in government and you construct roads around the metropolis, or provide water for the people, electricity for the people, you make life easy for them, you provide security. When you leave government, you're going to be a beneficiary of this same thing you've put in place. So you can live in your area of responsibility as either a former governor or a president, or you don't have to leave your state and go and live in another state. You can live comfortably and enjoy that which you have put in place. Similarly, if you also help enthrone impunity and all forms of negative tendencies in government, there are very high chances that you're going to be a victim of the same things you help to institute while you're in government. The abnormalities you made normal while you're in government, you're going to be a victim as well.
Is that what played out in El-Rufai's case?
It is generally the case with the political class.
Yeah, but the question, sir, speaking specifically to El-Rufai.
No, I'm going to come specifically to El-Rufai.
Okay.
Generally the political class. We've been warning them. You see, one of the reasons we are where we are is because of what I've already identified as Nigeria's stratification along tribal and religious fault lines. So that has created out of Nigeria a jungle of some sort where life is nasty, brutish, and short. Because if you look at the jungle, animals that are walking on all fours, living in the same proximate environment, that ordinarily should have a common agenda for their own development. But they see themselves so differently. The lion sees the tiger as different, the tiger sees the antelope as different. They cluster along tribal lines and they have no common purpose, and they are constantly warring among themselves. So that also gave rise to the Lion King phenomenon now. So the Lion King is one of the most parochial leaders I've ever seen in my life. He's supposed to be the king of the jungle, but he's only a king to the benefit of his own pride, right? But there's something that often happens to the lion. Because of his irresponsibility, he becomes a victim of his own bad legacy as a leader. So rather than uniting the animal kingdom and making them able to ward off incursion from mankind like us, who are going to their terrain to mine mineral resources. That's the richest kingdom in the world, the animal kingdom. Your mineral resources is in their kingdom. Anything you need, anything that we're using to make life easy for ourselves, actually is in the animal kingdom. But they don't even have to mine their own resources. And they cannot prevent us from coming into poach. Sometimes we even go and actually poach them as animals and bring them home as pets and put them in the zoo and all of that. They cannot even defend themselves, but they're always fighting among themselves fiercely. That infighting was fostered by an irresponsibility by the lion, because the lion goes to hunt other animals for the benefit of his own pride. So he's a very parochial, sectional, tribalistic, mean-minded kind of king that simply epitomizes leadership failure. That's exactly the case with Nigeria and our leaders. So they're lion kings. We have a lion king phenomenon in our leadership system because our politics is driven by identity. And so people, when you throw up leaders, there's this continuous struggle for relevance amongst them. So the lion himself, when he grows a bit older and becomes weak, the corpse that he fed with other people's carcass would have grown stronger now. Guess what? They will chase him away and inherit his wives and his domain. He will now be running into the wilderness aimlessly, becomes weak, unprotected. And guess what? I don't know, you'll not be killed by a buffalo. Buffalo that are easily eaten by animals, by lions. One small buffalo, somebody will just kick him to death because at that point in his life, he's unprotected. Now, El-Rufai struggled and installed a successor. So that lion cub, that also became strong now. And now chased away the lion. He became unprotected. He became vulnerable. And so the federal authorities clamped him down now. When he wanted to even roar a little bit, you still have much to roar, they clamped him down. I'm making an analogy for you to know that it's neither right nor wrong. Because the victim here is not somebody who has not been a victimizer in the past. He's not an innocent man per se of the system. He's part of the system. So I'm saying the lesson to be learned from this is that if a whole El-Rufai can be kept in detention throughout the month of Ramadan and he actually celebrated the Salah in detention, it tells you that now is the time for us to begin to act right across board.
As much as it does that, it also says something about these independent bodies being used as tools.
That's what I'm saying, that he himself is not a look.
So he did it, and so it should be done to him, basically. That's what we're having. I don't think I'll be
decision to make any analysis anymore. If you had asked me that there is a journalist somewhere or there's an ordinary citizen that was arrested, I would have been giving you reason why the state is oppressive or not. I cannot be talking about that in El-Rufai's case. If the state is oppressive today, El-Rufai was one of those who fostered that oppressive nature of the state.
How do we correct this, though?
Lesson from El-Rufai. That look, let us live today knowing that there's tomorrow. All of us, including those in power.
Interesting.
Simple.
So for now, the system can persist as it is.
Yeah, eat lounge. It's not. According to Obama, he said, "Gambari pafulani." He will look of him there. So, look, what I'm saying is, these are members of the same establishment eating out each other. And I'm saying this would have been prevented if only, as individual leaders, everybody contributed. In 1999, if we all contributed towards rule of law, strengthening of the rule of law, if we had all contributed towards inclusive leadership, non-marginalization, justice, equity, and fairness to all without regard to ethnicity or religion, it would have been difficult for a Tinubu in 2024 or 2025 or 2026 now to want to victimize someone because it would have become an enduring culture. You can no longer do it. Look, America made progress over the years that when Trump tried to undo certain things, it became so difficult. The system resisted. Trump became an oddity, right? But because this is the normal system amongst themselves, if you give him an opportunity, he will do something to Tinubu. If you give it is like
doggy dog.
A jungle situation.
Okay.
So these are Lion Kings. One has fallen out of favor. He's been chased and the wilderness. Yeah. It's a Lion King phenomenon. So to that extent, all I can say to Nigerians is, can we now learn a lesson or two? But unfortunately, we don't learn lessons. Why? Because of the monkey phenomenon. You know the monkey phenomenon?
You will have to tell us that after the break.
Okay.
We have a quick commercial to go for. Let's do that, come back, understand what this monkey phenomenon thing is, and then after the news, we'll take the final story and open up the phone lines, or do that in reverse order. But yes, let's go on that commercial break. Stay with us.
Station Nigeria Info.
Hard facts.
It is indeed. Okay. We're going to talk about the monkey phenomenon, but I'm thinking I should take 2 calls. We'll get to that, and then after the news, we continue. So the phone lines have been buzzing. Let's do a few. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon, Somi.
Welcome, sir.
And good afternoon to Dr. Majeed.
Good afternoon, sir. This was Salasi.
My name is Salasi. I'm so eager to hear the monkey phenomenon. But before then, I want to contribute in the aspect of energy. Honestly, you have said it all. You have been saying this time without number, both in radio and television. And I don't think the government is listening. And now, with the war of Ukraine, look at what Brazil are doing, Japan, to make sure that the life of their citizens, they provide subsidy for their citizens. This government just say, they provide 100,000 kids or CNG gas. How can how would the poor people benefit from that? The old man from Kauranamuda, the old person, the poor person from Amasoma, how will they benefit from this CNG? They are talking of to supporting the suffering that people are going through. As I'm speaking to you, most of the civil servants, they are going to work from Monday and come back on Friday because they can't afford for the transport. These are the issue of that. So for the issue of El-Rufai, I always say that, in fact, in the next 10 years, the people in government now, they will be out of government. They will out of power. No crown remain for someone here forever. If you're in power today, be careful how you treat people. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much, Salasi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tony.
Welcome.
Dr. Majeed, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Issue of Nigeria economy and so on. The problem of Nigeria is politicians. Sorry, don't put my name.
Go ahead, sir.
Don't put my name, yeah. According to Kubwa. It's politicians. Then we have another problem in the religious angle. Yes. You see, so if we must get it right, we should ban all these religious houses. How can you tell your youth that more you pray, more will God will bless you? They are not making work. God, they have a state or industry where you give people work. So, you see all this, the most important problem is that they are educated. So have a PhD holder, some are doctoral degree, so this and that. But they are not telling their members the truth, especially the youth. How can you tell them more you pray, more God will bless you? Why you are targeting their time and offering and the sowing of a seed and bazaar money? You carry people to money and buy car. You tell them, say, let's come next week. When you come, God will bless you.
Okay.
When you are in abroad, studying. You see, political is our problem. And the secondary, all these religious leaders that are confusing those Nigerians that don't know their later life.
All right, sir.
And they can't deceive me.
Okay.
So this is that our problem is political and all these religious houses.
All right,
we
then.
have another measure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Okwi. All right. Dr. Majeed, how do we fix the problem of governance in Nigeria and be like other countries when our electoral process is flawed? Our judiciary is cash and carry. Until we fix our electoral process, Nigeria will never grow. Joey Maraba with that one. We have to go and take the news. When we come back, more on Hard Facts midweek special, starting from the monkey phenomenon, as Dr. Majeed is about to clearly explain to us. But do stay with us. We'll be right back after the news.
With all the stories that make the news,
The headlines,
the caption, the breaking news.
details of the stories.
Let's talk about these and more.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
And now, news from the nation's capital. This is Abuja Today.
The Federal Road Safety Corps says it has restricted over 300 articulated vehicles and trucks from movement on the ever-busy Kubo outbound corridor during peak hours in Abuja. In a statement that by the FRSC, it said the operation was a proactive initiative conceived by the FRSC Corps Marshal Sheikh Mohammed and driven at the sector level. The statement added that the operation was strategically designed to mitigate road traffic crashes in line with the provisions of the National Road Traffic Regulations.
Politics of our nation.
They have that right to protest. There is no need to go there and now start shooting.
The current affairs of our state.
Everywhere we have gone to, the dirt of Abuja is not on the surface.
All at your fingertips on your Let's Talk station.
95.1 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. Welcome back to Hard Facts.
This is Hard Facts.
Hard Facts.
Hard Facts.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info.
All right, we are back. I'm just going to let Dr. Majeed take the mic again. We left it off at a very important explanation he was about to give us. So let's hear from you, sir.
Also, because we don't learn lessons, I call it the monkey phenomenon.
Okay.
If you look at the group of monkeys in the forest moving, and the one in the front falls into a ditch, unexpected ditch, probably due to wetland or waterlogged, land, so they fall into a ditch. You know what that one will do? Instead of standing and caution others to say, don't follow this path, he will fill up the ditch and move ahead. The next monkey will come, fall into the same ditch, struggle out of it, and fill it up and continue. Nobody will tell the other to say, look, this was a mistake I made, please don't fall into it. So they repeat the same cycle of mistake over and over and again for the rest of their lives. I'm using this analogy because we're not so different from these guys, really. We need to call ourselves out for us to know how low we have sunk as a people. I keep describing Nigeria as one that is at the bottom of the pyramid of human civilization. We are at the bottom. Why human beings will fight over grazing land for cattle to feed? People will kill themselves. Why communities will slaughter themselves because of cattle to feed? It's only Nigeria that happens. So these are the kind of things we are faced with. We need a new set of thinking. Now, I do not endorse the misuse of state institutions against any citizen, whether the person is El-Rufai or not. But I'm just saying, as it concerns El-Rufai, it will be futile to start talking about whether or not the state is being used to witch hunt him or otherwise. After all, they're in court. So the court will decide whether or not. But Let us look at it. Some members of the same political establishment. So those that are in power today, that are smiling, that are doing this to Rufai, we also know that those that are doing these things together can do the same thing to them. Just the next, a day after May 20, is it 2027 now, or 2031, if they have to up to 2031. It's the same thing because there are no principles in politics. So
in Nigerian politics?
No, there's no principle, nothing. So I'm sure that if he has the opportunity next time, I hope and pray that he avoids the monkey phenomenon. That is by learning a lesson now, and now signposting and saying, look, while I was in power, I contributed to this impunity, to enthrone this imperial state. Therefore, I have repented. I called on those who did this too. Most of the past administration, a lot of you have been in power since 1999. So, you also need to commit class suicide. You need to admit your contribution to the rot and say, look, but we have realized that at this point in time, we've seen it all. We now want to serve the interest of the people for the rest of our lives. Because we have seen that it's no longer sustainable. And that because we are privileged, our own children are not privileged like us. Therefore, let us now create a system that makes every citizen privileged. You don't have to be anybody, you don't have to be son of anybody. I've seen people whose fathers were governors, whose fathers were presidents. And I know where to be found today. In Anambra politics, please point to me as the student. Can you tell me?
Most probably abroad.
The bottom line is that in the politics of their state, those that are running things now, they're not there. You go to Abia State, where Emma Opara comes from, point to me his children. What am I saying? Emma Opara and Co. decided to leave legacies down for everybody. So they built universities. As Premier, he built university. Emma Opara built factories. He built in Kanagu Cement Factory in Ebonyi State today. He built it on the Shaman Market. The Shaman Market today is a major source of revenue and wealth, not just for Abia people, Igbo people as a whole, or people of all the Eastern region. He built the industrial layouts in Aba and Port Harcourt, which has made these cities, these towns, very industrious, bubbling with economic activities. So today, his children can benefit from these legacies. All right? I'm saying, those that are in power today, which one are they building that if they're no longer relevant and their children don't have anybody in power, what can their children benefit from? Have they not seen enough of Nigeria in 67 years to know that, so in 66 years, to know that God is telling us something. God is telling you, be normal. I created you as a human being. Stop being an animal. I created you as a human being. If I wanted, I would have created you and thrown you into the jungle as a wolf, as a tiger, as a lion. But I created you as a human being. Why can't we live up to our reputation as a human being? You see what this is called integrity, eh? It's not rocket science. To have integrity is to be human. Let me give you another example. Have you noticed? It's only a lion that will go into the forest and kill a buffalo and eat bits and pieces of it. They don't eat carrion. So they will eat bits and pieces. Then the bulk of the buffalo will be left to rot away. Have you observed it? That's how they operate. That is, they take more than they can eat and they waste it away. Compared to our big men, they would acquire what they can never utilize, what they don't need, what they can never utilize. And they will die and leave it behind. Have you seen the list of properties acquired by a late governor recently that has caused litigation between his children and his wives? Have you seen it? So compare that to that lion that will just wait. You saw a buffalo. You cannot eat all the buffalo, but you killed it, wasted it, and took a little bit of one. Because you cannot eat more than that, the size of your stomach. You can't sleep more than in one room. There's no way you can do it. You can sleep only on one bed. Even that bed, if your bed is 6 inches, you discover that you cannot sleep beyond 2 inches of the bed per night. But you have houses that stretch from here to there. Things you don't need, you acquire them at the expense of others. And you waste them away. So what's the difference between the Lion King and our politicians? Can you tell me? But God created us as human beings. So integrity simply means to be human. No? A non-human being, you know that this is the size of what I should eat. I don't need more than this. So I shouldn't go and acquire what I don't need. It's not critical for me and my children. You give birth to children and you overindulge them. And what becomes of them? They become so overindulged that they cannot work for themselves. So you find out that certain generations of our big men, particularly from the 80s and 70s, are still taking care of their children and their grandchildren till tomorrow. Is that life? That's not life. So we go to the point where all of us must now become born again. We all have committed, we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Is that not how the Bible said it?
Yeah.
So we now need to have a rethinking and say, look, we can't continue like this. The reason other countries are succeeding is simple: integrity-based leadership, or aka humanist leadership. A leadership that is human. As a human being, you are not supposed to be able to take what does not belong to you because you're a human being. That's not between you and an animal. Because a cow, without being protected or guided, can go to somebody's farm and graze, right? Because it can't think beyond certain levels. But a human being should know how to avoid somebody's farm and not graze on the farm. A human being should avoid not to go to somebody's cattle breeding environment and start selling the person's cattle. A human being should know that if they say this money is meant for people, healthcare of people, you shouldn't steal it. Kill the healthcare system and then start going abroad to treat only yourself and your family.
I mean,
this is for education. You don't eat it and now start going abroad for your own children only.
It's interesting that you took it there, because I also know that in reconciling what we see, I think in the case of Nigeria, we're really a matter of concern, but ideally the heart of man is wicked. So some of these things that we're seeing, aren't they expected? It's just that in the case of Nigeria, we have enabled it by allowing systems to fail, by allowing structures to fail, and all of that. So I'm thinking, if we're going to get it right, is it not the same human beings that will get it right? The same human beings.
No, but God said the heart of man is wicked.
Yes.
He never said the heart of man is stupid.
So that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Okay.
So wickedness is not. It is, to me, it's better to be wicked and to be a witch than to be a stupid person. Because the wicked person is deliberate. He's purposeful. He knows what he's doing. But stupidity is when you take what you don't need. You don't need it. So a man can be wicked because he wants to do something that he needs. He takes it by force because he needs it. But when you don't, this one is like, you don't even need what we are taking. You don't need. You can't.
It's okay, sir. I understand. Let's go to the phone lines for a little bit, and then we'll come back. We have one more story to look at, and then we'll be bringing the conversation to a close. 009-597-4869. On WhatsApp, it's 009-993-0137. Let's hear from you. 2 stories shared so far. One of them being the conversation around what we're doing in terms of crude production and how we'll be able to get out of this mess that we're in, if we're going to be able to get out of it. And then secondly, the story about El-Rufai and what he's facing in the net of the anti-corruption agency. But let's hear from you. Good afternoon. Hello? Hello? Okay. Call back, please. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Welcome.
My name is Daniel.
All right, so go ahead.
I just want to make a request to Nigeria Ifo. This analogy that Dr. Majeed just gave now, Mr. Majeed, I greet you very well. God bless you richly. This analysis of animal, whatever, can you make it as a kind of a jingle on your radio stations, on television stations, so that our project can hear this animal analogy? Maybe if they don't know, they'll look at it, they are living like animals as well. Please, I want to make that appeal to you. Please, thank you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Auntie Somi?
Yes, sir, welcome.
Especially.
Good to have you here, sir. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Oga Majeed, I hail you.
Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. On a lighter note, I go your Facebook here where people say when you are shouting about easy for the Ramadan fast. So I had enough fun on your page. Well done, sir. I am Dr. Majeed, thank you so much. What you said about El-Rufai, that has been my position for weeks since they started attacking him. Now that they are prosecuting him in Kaduna, do you want to tell me that everybody in Kaduna is
not happy with what is happening to him. From the way he handled that state and handed over to Governor Oba, there are people today that they are happy he's going. In fact, they wish that more would befall him from this government. If you have opportunity to serve, do the right thing. Stop behaving like you are a lord on your own. You are going to be there forever. Is it normal, I mean, that they are using the EFCC to be pushing up and down? Now he's crying, it's illegal, EFCC cannot do this. But as Attorney General, what did you do to ensure that nobody used EFCC to oppress anybody? When you sow, be so that they talk, a time of harvest will come. Do the right thing so that when you leave office, you will enjoy. Good example. As Oti is doing all these things in Abia State today, if he leaves and goes to Aba, is it not those good roads that he will enjoy? Or enjoy some of those facilities? Or maybe what Peter B did and the other governors who are trying to do their best. Thank you for the analogy. And I support the last caller that some of the things that you say, they need to start, playing it on this radio, because you've been like a prophet, though you not get church.
I'm the correct right.
Thank you very much, Mazi. All right. For playbacks, you can always go to our social media handle. We're on Facebook and YouTube. Go there and you'd see playback of all the conversations that we've been having on the station, especially as it has to do with the first half hour of Hard Facts. But let's hear from some more of you. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome.
My name is Ajola Peter from Dusalagi.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk on El-Rufai. Well, let him continue to endure. After all, he has done and wine with ABC for many years. He has benefited tremendously from that party. So now that he's going through his own ordeal, some of his supporters, or majority of his supporters, believe that the politically persecuted. But to me, he has questions to answer. One thing about this life is that whatever you sow, you reap. Looking at his administration, his tenure in Kaduna State was deadly and bloody. As a matter of fact, many people died. And I know the families of those who died will be happy now seeing him going through his own challenge or challenges. Politicians should remember that money is not everything. Power is not everything. They believe that money is everything. But let money be now. He has been caged now for weeks. He has billions in his card. He has the connection. But the connection cannot help him now. Money cannot help him. So also, we are expecting many of El-Rufai, we are expecting some politicians too will be disgraced in the next election with their billions and millions. They have the billions, they have the millions, and they will roll out money for the elections. But with their money, they will be disgraced. I pray the Electoral Act will work so that with their billions and billions and millions in 2027, they will be disgraced. They will know that money is not everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's take one more call and then I'll run through the messages. Good afternoon. Hello? Hello? Is anybody there? Good afternoon. Okay. You don't seem to know that I've picked your call.
Hello, good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Sorry, Dr. Majeed, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Samuel, calling from Center.
All right,
Please,
so go ahead.
I want to find out, this crisis, I learned that Nigeria is selling, Nigeria is, with the high price of crude oil, we are making more money. Is it true? Please, I want to know about that. Then the other thing I want to talk about is any impunity you don't correct during your turn will be used against you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We'll get Dr. Majeed to answer your question in a little bit. Is Nigeria making money from the surge in global prices of crude? He'll answer that shortly. Ken from Uye says, what touched me the most in this whole conversation is that government is like God on earth. Ken is saying, good afternoon, Dr. Majeed. You're right when you say Saudi Arabia are buying from Nigeria. Did you say that? Okay. Good afternoon, Somi, Dr. Majeed, Nigeria Info. Happy to have Dr. Majeed back. Dr. Majeed has been preaching government involvement in owning enterprises since forever, but I don't think that is a possibility for the current government because they are not even thinking in that direction, unfortunately. Ibrahim from Airport Road with that one. And Leo says, NEPA under government truly was better than what we have now. Imagine AEDC invited me to pay 125,200 for my prepaid meter, but only sent me acknowledgement of 115,127 naira 81 kobo. They said the difference is for processing and reactivation. No receipt though. And I asked, what exactly are they reactivating? Reactivating a new meter? What a contradiction. Fresh Prince from Wuse 2. My name says, nice hearing from our guest this afternoon. Talking about state-owned enterprises, I think our problem has always been corruption. Corruption is our biggest problem as far as this nation is concerned. And for Nasir El-Rufai, I think he has benefited from the same system in the past. It's a big lesson for all of us. Good afternoon, Somi. Ferdinand from Galadima was saying, this speaks to how terribly this country has been mismanaged over time. And my worry is that we just carry on as if all is well, not knowing that we're just postponing doomsday. The likes of Dr. Majeed have analyzed, advised, and called out successive governments, but nobody seems to be listening. Imagine that public utilities in Nigeria are now a luxury. Apart from the air we breathe, which is given by God freely, what do we enjoy as Nigerians? And Ibro from Auta saying, hi, Somi, regards to Dr. Majeed. It is only in Nigeria you hear phrases such as government has no business in business. Corruption will end us if we do nothing about it. Tell me one Nigerian investment in other countries. Arab Contract is a construction company of Egypt. In short, may God bless Nigeria as usual. All right, let's run through the last story very quickly and then we'll go back to the phone lines to hear from you. This one concerning the happenings in the world. Something that has aggravated, if you will, the situation of standard of living in Nigerians, making it deteriorate even further. Well, at least that's what the government says. It's not on them. It's completely on the world happenings, and there's nothing that they can do about it. Now, in latest news on the U.S.-Israel-Iran war, Trump is talking about, possible engagement with representatives of the Iranian government. He has not necessarily mentioned any names, but, he's touting talks, and this is happening despite the fact that Iran is responding to say, it's like this talk that you are talking about, this negotiation that you're saying, you are having it with yourself. But Trump on his own, said that, he's in talks with certain representatives. And as a matter of fact, the U.S. is talking about a 15-point list of expectations. Now, this 15-point list has not necessarily been made available to public, but there is word on where it's coming from. Apparently, when they had the situation last year, they came up with something like this, a 15-point list to say these are the terms that need to be reached if there's going to be peace and if we're going to come to any sort of agreement. So the 15-point agenda has come out again, and based on what was made available last year in May before negotiations collapsed, we're seeing possible things that could be put on the table. One, a total pause in hostilities for 30 days to allow face-to-face negotiations, likely in Islamabad. There's also talks about permanent destruction of all remaining nuclear enrichment infrastructure. All existing stockpiles of enriched uranium are also on the table, that it must be shipped out of Iran immediately, and a permanent ban on domestic uranium enrichment will be put in place. There is also conversations or speculations that this 15-point list will contain strict verifiable limits on Iran's ballistic missile range and production. And of course, one of the biggest things that has come into play in this course of this war, the Strait of Hormuz, and it's possible that they're going to declare the waterway a free maritime zone under international guarantee, ending Iran's ability to charge transit fees or block shipping, something that they have admitted to doing, especially the matter of charging fees. And then there's supposed to be a total halt to the funding and arming of groups like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and various militia in Iraq. I can't go through the entire list, but I'll just mention two more issues. And in exchange for giving up enrichment, the U.S. will reportedly be available to help fund a civilian nuclear program with full facilities located outside of Iran And lastly,
more news.
Lastly, there talks about granting the IAEA anytime, anywhere access to UN inspectors to come into Iran and find out what is going on. Of course, a formal agreement between Iran and its Gulf neighbors also supposed to be reached. The queue for the commercials came up, so let's quickly take that and then come back and wrap up on our final story. Stay with us.
This is Nigeria Info.